Okay, now let's talk about guys in the bubble real quick. I'll give you 10 or so guys that I think are on the bubble. You tell me if you think they're at the end of this camp cut, trade candidate, or they make the roster. All right. Here we go. Brandon Allen.
He could be on the practice squad. He's not going to make the 53-man roster. So cut.
Okay, so that one's interesting. Before we move off of this, Brandon Allen is going to make $1 million, Dave, if he makes the roster. The NFL minimum's like $750. Why did he come here if he was Joe Burrow's number 2? Did Cincinnati not want him? If you play on the practice squad, you're going to make $207,000 if you stayed there all year. Why would he come here for $207,000 and an $800,000 pay cut? That one is very bizarre to me. Unless he's a lot worse than I thought, and maybe Cincinnati didn't want him back. I don't know.
And again, injuries happen. We saw the 49ers have 4 of them at the quarterback position or more. I lost count last year. You're a call away from being on the 53. Also, if some funny business does happen amongst the top 3 quarterbacks, hey, if Brock Purdy is not ready to go and the 49ers want to carry 3 quarterbacks and they have the 3 quarterback rule this year to be able to flex a QB up, all of a sudden Brandon Allen is a much more prominent part of that mix. It's just really hard to tell because the situation is going to be different on August 31st, which I believe is cut down day, than it is right now in early July. So, I just think that there is uncertainty shrouds the 49ers quarterback room until we know exactly when Brock Purdy is going to return and until we know how camp starts progressing with Trey Lance, with Sam Darnold, and with Brandon Allen. So I think he's happy to compete amidst that uncertainty because that means a potential opportunity in a Kyle Shanahan system. Because if you do get a shot to play in this system, and every quarterback got a shot to play last year, you're going to have a shot to put up big numbers because you have Shanahan calling the plays and you have a lot of star skill position players to throw to.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Ty Davis-Price, cut, trade candidate, or he makes the roster?
So I'm opening up my 90-man depth chart right now where I have all my projections. I just want to be consistent with what I have on here. I have Davis-Price making the roster. I have the 49ers carrying 5 backs, and that includes Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, and Ty Davis-Price. I don't think maybe early in Shanahan's tenure, they carried only 4 at the start of the season, but in recent years, they've always carried at least 5. Last year, they even carried 6. Remember, they carried Trey Sermon, and then they cut him like 2 days later.
This one, you got to really think about this one because I know the first one is he's on the roster, but Ronnie Bell did look good in the minicamp. I agree with you on that, and I'm a Tay Martin fan from Oklahoma State, and Tay's stronger than he was a year ago, and he's got very good hands. Could really fire in the preseason. Javon Jennings, is he cut? Is he a trade candidate? Does he make the 53? I can't see them signing him beyond this year.
My 6 receivers, and I think they're going to take 6 on the inside looking in right now, are Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Javon Jennings as your number 3, your slot guy, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, and Ronnie Bell. So I have Tay Martin on the outside looking in. I have Chris Conley on the outside looking in. Willie Snead, I think, is going to be one of those practice squad yo-yo guys for special teams, just like he was last year. So I do think that Jennings makes the team. I think he just really embodies so much of what the 49ers want offensively. He gets under defenders' skin. He's a great blocker. And Kyle Shanahan has actually gone out and said that Jennings is their best route runner. And we're like, our best separator, he says, which is obviously very related to route running. A couple times Shanahan has said that. And one time I'm like, wait, even better than Brandon Ayuk? And he's like, yeah, I'll put Jennings right up there. This guy separates. He's obviously not a fast 40 guy. That's why he lasted until the 7th round in 2021. But he sure does separate. And just go back and watch the tape of that game against the Rams in Week 18 when they went down to SoFi and won at the end of the 2021 regular season. Obviously, Jennings had the big catch to tie the game, the touchdown catch. But he also made 2 plays in overtime on 3rd down, out patterns in overtime that were really impressive routes, that were money catches. And, players who can do that for you. And I think Javon Jennings in a contract year this year is going to be even more motivated to make plays like that, and who can block. Those aren't guys that you just jettison in a year where you're trying to win it all. So
I hear you.
I think Javon Jennings is going to be on this football team.
Did you say Gray is on too? He was one of your 6?
Yeah, so I think it's probably between Gray and Chris Conley, because Gray's a burner. Chris Conley's a burner. I think Chris Conley's there to push Danny Gray a little bit, but Conley's a 30-year-old vet on a 1-year deal. 49ers benefit a lot more from having Danny Gray in year 2 emerge. And, last year, Danny Gray just never developed a presence. And a lot of Shanahan receivers don't develop a presence early on because Shanahan coaches them so hard. There's a lot swimming in their heads, but it pays off, right? It paid off for Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel emerged quickly, but Deebo Samuel was a special case. Took Javon Jennings some time. I think that I started to see a little bit of a presence from Danny Gray during OTAs. So I would put him on the inside track against somebody like Chris Conley for right now.
Oh, and Shanahan has said to me how important a guy like Gray is for play calling. He creates space because he'll run off the coverage. All right, how about tight end, Ross Dwelley?
I have him on the outside looking in right now but it just depends on if one or both of these rookies make the team. I have Kittle and I have Werner making the team. Latu is a 3rd-round pick, so you'd think he'd make it, but the 49ers, they don't care about draft position anymore. And if you talk to Brian Fleury, their tight ends coach, he said they were shocked that Braden Willis lasted until the 7th round. They obviously view him as somebody that's higher than a 7th-round pick as far as his value goes. And a lot of the league looks at Cameron Latu as somebody lower than a 3rd-round pick. They thought that he might go in the 5th. I mocked Cameron Latu to the 49ers in the 5th. Anyway, throw the draft status out the window. The best players are going to make the team here. Neither was a particularly valuable pick to where, oh my gosh, we have to carry him just because of where we drafted him. And, if all goes well for both of these rookies, I would say that Kittle, Werner, Willis, and Latu make the team. Now, if one of Willis or Latu isn't quite ready and is more of a practice squad type of guy, that's when Dwelley keeps his job. And Dwelley, I believe, has now signed 6 separate 1-year contracts with the 49ers. So he knows how to stick around. You got to give him credit, but you could just feel Kyle Shanahan just itching to raise the ceiling of tight end 2 on this team.
Yeah, no question.
He tried to do it in 2020 with Jordan Reed. We never got to see Reed and Kittle on the field together for an extended period because of injuries. It's just tough to spend draft capital at tight end when you're already paying George Kittle so much money. So this year they did spend lower draft capital, maybe a little bit higher with Cameron Latu, and we'll see if these guys pan out. And if they do, that could squeeze guys like Dwelley out of the picture.
Matt Pryor, 60 games in the NFL, 24 career starts. To me, he looked a little out of shape at the mini camp, and you got Jalen Moore and you got other guys. This 3rd tackle, I think Leroy Watson, to me, looked much improved from last year. They're all cheaper, I'm sure, than Pryor. What's your guess? Is Pryor going to make it?
I think it's really dependent on Jalen Moore. I mean, it's put up or shut up time for Jalen Moore this training camp, and he can go out there and he could seize the swing tackle job. He has that opportunity. He got some reps with the ones with Trent Williams not doing team drills during the offseason program. So again, I don't know if they were good reps, bad reps. You'd have to ask an expert to tell you that, because if pads aren't on, let's not pretend like we know all too much about what's going on along those trenches. So training camp is where we're going to have a better idea of how somebody like Jalen Moore is responding to this challenge. And if he outplays Matt Pryor, he'll make the team. If the 49ers aren't comfortable with Jalen Moore's pass protection, his run blocking, I think Matt Pryor is probably a higher floor kind of player since he already has started at the NFL level. Leroy Watson, that's more of a wild card. We talked about him. I mean, he was literally a tight end just a couple years ago in college. Last season, he was bulking up on the practice squad. He's bulked up now. Is he ready to be somebody that an NFL team entrusts to a swing tackle position? Well, maybe he can earn a little bit of that cred during training camp, but I would still say that he's a longer shot for the 49ers at this point.
Javon Kinlaw, trade candidate, or makes the roster?
I don't know why anybody would trade for him. I mean, his value is really low right now because he hasn't been able to stay on the field healthy, and he still has one relatively expensive year left on his contract because he was a first round pick. But for the 49ers, that's a sunk cost. You can't worry about it. He's already on your team. So it's not going to, it's not going to hurt you to let him play this out. And I think they're really excited to put Javon Kinlaw in a situation where there's not nearly as much pressure on him as there was in the past because they got Javon Hargrave. So Kinlaw goes from be our starting 3 technique to be a rotational defensive lineman. And that's good for his knee and probably good for his mindset. Contract year, rotational defensive lineman. He could kind of, rotate in against some more unsuspecting O-linemen. Javon Hargrave is going to get the best reps from the opposition. Javon Kinlaw might be on a good platform this year to produce a little bit more than the past. And if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world because he's only a rotational guy. He's not somebody that the 49ers are relying on the inside.
Demetrius Flanagan fouls.
So a similar situation as the tight end room. They have these young linebackers. They drafted 2 of them. They have D. Winters and they have Jalen Graham. And then they also have Marcelino McCrary-Ball, who is a second-year guy who really impressed them on the practice squad, and they brought him back this year. So you obviously have Warner and you have Greenlaw. They're going to make the team as your 1 and 2. Then you have Warren Burks. He's going to make the team as your specialist, and he could be the number 3 linebacker until one of the young guys that I just listed is fully ready. But Flanagan Foles, he's a lot like a lower tier version of Warren Burks. He's a big time special teams contributor. He's linebacker depth, but he's obviously behind Warren Burks on both of those pecking orders. So if D. Winters and Jalen Graham and Marcelino McCrary-Ball blow you away during training camp, or if only 2 of those guys blow you away, that might push Flanagan Foles out of the mix. If only one of those guys blows you away, then they make the roster, say it's Jalen Graham. Then maybe D. Winters goes to the practice squad. And in that case, Flanagan Foles keeps his 53-man spot for now. It just depends on the degree of impressiveness that we see from these rookies. As of right now, I have Winters making the team, and that could maybe be interchangeable to Graham. I really don't know. I just have one of those rookies making the team, and I have Demetrius Flanagan Foles also making the team. But that might be something that shifts as I watch camp.
Does that mean Marcelino? You have Marcelino out?
I have Marcelino out, but again, that's something that can shift with camp.
Yeah.
I have D. Winters almost listed as a placeholder at this point. I think that the chances of Winters, Graham, and McCrary-Ball are on even footing right now, and we'll see what happens.
Ambry Thomas?
I have him on the inside right now, but DeSean Jameson is going to come knocking on that door if Ambry Thomas.
He was impressive.
Yeah. I mean, he was against the 3rd team, right, in OTAs, but he still made plays, and I'm looking at skill position guys in OTAs. It's more of a passing league. I look at guys that are pouncing on the football, and DeSean Jameson had practices with multiple pass breakups. And then you look at what he did at Texas as a returner, and he's electric.
Yes.
Now, is he a little bit short? Yes, but that could be a good thing. That could mean the 49ers this year have a big starting slot cornerback. They have Isaiah Oliver. He's 6'1", 210. That's a complete pivot from the past when K'Wan Williams with 5'9", 185 was running the position. It's going to give the 49ers some big-time flexibility against the run, but maybe they're also going to want to carry a more shutterbug-like little smaller nickel cornerback. And maybe DeSean Jameson can fit that role. So special teams adaptability and maybe that's, size or lack thereof, maybe that comes to play in his favor because he's going to have really good short area quickness that the 49ers can use to really expand the diversity of their defense.
2 last ones. Miles Hartsfield, who comes with Wilkes from Carolina, and Zane Gonzalez. I kind of see Zane Gonzalez, believe it or not, it may be a trade candidate.
Yeah.
And Miles Hartsfield did not impress me at all. To me, he looks kind of out of shape, and I know Wilkes likes him and he brought him from Carolina, but I think there's a very good chance Hartsfield doesn't make the team.
I have Hartsfield getting cut, and I think that Hartsfield's value is right now in the offseason program and in training camp. He's helping Wilkes install the playbook, right? Wilkes brings a guy that can be, bring some coach on the field like qualities. As far as making the team, though, it's a crowded safety room. It's a crowded DB room. Somebody's going to have to get hurt, I think, to justify carrying him on the team beyond the cut down. So that's where I have Miles Hartsfield. Who was the second player that you asked me about?
The kicker, the Zane Gonzalez.
Yeah. Oh, and can't believe more teams didn't try to do this. I think it's a genius business move from the 49ers. Zane Gonzalez has another season under contract, obviously. It's a good contract. He's not overly expensive. None of it's guaranteed. The 49ers picked him up at essentially zero cost, a conditional 7th-round pick swap. But now you control this guy's rights. And if a team gets desperate for a kicker close to the 53-man cutdown, it's a free potential 5th, 6th-round pick. I don't know how desperate somebody will be, but it's still a draft pick that you otherwise wouldn't have had. I mean, the teams that didn't try to do this, it was like they had a $20 bill sitting on the ground and they didn't pick it up. So the 49ers essentially picking up potential free money. I'm not sure if it's going to work out that way, but there's no downside to it, right? Because if nobody wants to trade for Zane, they can cut him, and that pick swap never happened. It's a conditional thing. So to me, the 49ers are just put themselves in a really good position to potentially flip Zane Gonzalez. It's like, buying a house that hasn't been repaired. You fix the house and then you sell it for a profit.
They actually did it twice, Dave, because there's a report that was out when you were gone or maybe it was right before you left, about Coletto, the fullback, that the Niners maybe, they signed him. They outbid some teams to sign him as an undrafted free agent, college rookie. And now there's talk that, teams like Dallas or the Jets or some of these teams that need a fullback, if he has a decent, camp and the Niners go lean and with 5 backs, let's say, at the cut down and they cut Coletto, maybe before they cut him, they might be able to pawn him for a 7th-round pick to one of these teams that needs a fullback. So I think, they may wind up getting 2 draft picks out of Zane Gonzalez and Jack Coletto and have neither of them ever suit up a snap for them in the regular season. If they were able to do it, it's borderline genius.